This here is a 5MGE. Yes, it is upside down. Ignore that. It's mostly upside down because it's really top heavy, straight 6 on this thing, and this thing has been back here for about 10 years, and long-term storage, it was best to put it upside down. It had already been drained of oil and everything for a long time before it was turned over. But anyway, this is a 5MGE. The engine I just pulled out of the Crest is a 7MGE. Big difference, 2.8 liter, other one's 3 liter. 12 valve, 24 valve. That's pretty much where it ends. Both are front sump because they're Cressidas. So both have intake manifold on the same side. So this is the motor that I built over 12 years ago to be in my MX-73. I built the Frankenstein motor. Inside here is 7M GTE parts, so it's all 5M on the outside, but inside it's got a 7M GTE crank, rods, and pistons. It's a Frankenstein motor. I suggest you never do that. Try to do that. Try to make something like that. I was trying to reinvent the wheel, something I am notorious for trying to do. Hopefully I've learned my lesson. Over the next few videos is checking the rod and main bearing clearances, just plastic gauge, basic plastic, just to make sure everything still is fine. I'm going to eventually do a leak down test on its current to see if anything shows up on any of the cylinders, like any piston ring problems, because the engine never really ran long. I think it went to one event, and that was an NO drift event on the Belle Chase Naval Air Station, and that was the only time it ever drove beyond just some rumbling in the driveway. But the idea is to take the head and then take everything off of here, take the stuff off of my other motor, and put it onto this one. But before that, one of the big things needs to be done is I need to start disassembling it and then clean it, because as you can see there is rust forming on the block. Definitely thicker near the head, which makes sense, that's where all the heat is. Mostly because here in the back, my carport, where the engine was stored, only a few feet away from where it was stored, it's changed its position since, was the dryer vent for the clothes dryer. So yeah, so that's what I'm going to start doing today, start removing bits and pieces of it so I can get to the actual block. Connectors I didn't notice. As you can see, this side, the exhaust side, fared a lot well, where it's just barely any little surface rust, but definitely down by the head, which makes sense, that's where all the heat is. Yeah, so this is what I was afraid of. There's not enough room for it to go back and then unbend itself. Or not go back and then bend it and get out of the way. This is not a Toyota filter. This is a Mustang filter. Do not ask about why it's on here. I thought maybe. Now you may be asking yourself, why does Carl want to remove this stuff before doing the bearing clearances? It's mostly because once I break this oil pan seal, I'm afraid that when I go put the oil pan back down and paint this and sand this all down, that I'm going to get contaminants in. So while this is sealed, I want to remove as much of this external stuff, so any shavings from this rust or overspray won't go into the motor. Alright, here's the hoping everything comes off well. So after I knocked off this intake manifold, everything's unbolted. Look at this. Right here. This piece stayed on for some reason when I went to disconnect it, and it broke the casting. And for some reason when I went to disconnect this manifold, this plenum from the lower runners, it broke it off. So this manifold is, this lower runner is no good. That sucks. And I wanted to point out something that I discovered. So this is the EGR backup plate I had made for the manifold, and here's the one for the back of the motor. Now, come to find out, I have one of these made for also the 7M, but from reading stuff at Drift Motion, that by doing this, the exhaust gases still run through the back of the head, causing the back of the head to heat up and causing blown head gaskets. One of the reasons why M-series motors, mostly the 7M, are known for blowing head gaskets is because of this, other than the heads needed to be retorqued. But it's a lot to do with this emission stuff that was added to American motors. Alright, so now I need to get the runners off, which would then allow me to flip it over to get the injectors unclipped, which looks like some injectors have already kind of come unwired just from the weight of the... These are all held on by those wire clips with the wire wraps around it, and it's kind of hard to get to unless just like these, very hard to get to upside down. If this was right side up, I would unclip the harness first. Like I'm gonna do this. Oh, and the reason I can remove the manifold with the rail is because, unlike the 7M, the fuel injectors inject into the manifold, whereas on the 7M they inject into the side of the head.